Hi, guys. Welcome back. This is Grounded HTX. Once again, we appreciate you guys being a part of our family, joining us along with the journey of dialogue and conversation. Again, here we are. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Darlene. Say hi, babe.
Hello.
And we have some special friends today. Believe it or not, we have the Flores family. We have Desmond and Delma that are here today, and we're going to have a great time today. We're going to talk about a few subjects, and stick around to the very end. We have a lot to talk about. We appreciate you guys. Once we'll go ahead and jump ahead and just let you to know that comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you for all the support that you guys are giving us, and let's get started. All right, so Desmond, Delma, tell us a little bit about yourselves and how long you've been married and where you're from, kind of all that kind of stuff, background.
Intro.
Man, you going in deep. That's some deep stuff.
Starting out deep right away.
Yeah,
Bro.
that's a lot.
No pressure.
Yeah. So, me and Delma here, we've been together for. See, you're already getting me in trouble, man.
Oh no.
No, we've been married since 2005, and we started dating probably 2002, 2003.
Yep.
Yeah, and we started dating in June.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 20th? Am I
It
close?
was actually July.
Oh, July 20th.
Oh, wow, you're in
I
trouble.
was close. It was pretty close. I'm in trouble
It's
now.
close,
I'm in
it's
trouble.
Mhm.
This is how you don't start a podcast.
What not to do.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, we've been together for over 20 years. Well, yeah, over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
We're about to hit our 20 married next year. So we're excited. I'm excited about that.
Yep.
Um,
Mhm.
what else particularly? Dalma does, we both work full time. We both, are very passionate about the Lord. So we do our best to lead by example in following God. And we place him at the center of our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And we do our best to make sure that he's first. We're very intentional about it. And we're so intentional, we call each other our number twos.
Our number two.
Yeah, she's my number two, and I'm her number two. So.
It's good stuff. I mean, I think before we kind of get into the deeper subjects of like, you guys are now in ministry and kind of like maybe talk a little bit about your spiritual walk and together or separate, individually or together. But Desmond also met Danny kind of like there'll be a podcast in the future about the mountain men. Their encounter at the mountain in Mexico when they went on that mission trip. And that was like December of 21.
Mhm.
And then they came to our wedding in February of 22. And we've been good friends ever since. They're great people and we love them dearly. And we've gotten closer throughout the years and both spiritually, but also, I mean, individually as women, we're part of a prayer group, a women's prayer group, and where we meet monthly. And so Delma's become an integral part of that. And, the guys also meet every month too. And so, the friends you see us bring on, these first few weeks or so is kind of one of our closest dear friends. And so just wanted to share that before we kind of get into a little more deeper subjects.
A little deeper subjects. So we know each other for a few years. We became really close. We're part of the same spiritual covering in the church that we were at. Those that know us here in Houston, Delma, are you a Houston native or where are you from?
I am born and raised in Houston. That's actually, my husband and I actually go back a little bit further. We met in high school. And
Really?
yes, it was very interesting how the Lord worked. He had his high school sweetheart. I had my high school sweetheart. We parted ways because it was after high school. We actually graduated and sat next to each other at high school graduation.
Oh yeah, Delma was doing some interesting things.
I was.
Delma's got an amazing testimony when she decides to share that.
That's girl talk next podcast.
After she cries.
So I moved away to Austin for a couple years, lived in Austin, actually started going to school while I was in Austin. I moved back to Houston and I ran into Desmond.
How many years later after?
I want to say it was maybe about 3 or 4 years later. is when I ran into Desmond after high school. And then we exchanged numbers and just tried to stay in contact because we were really good friends prior to me moving. And that is kind of where we kind of rekindled our friendship, and we actually became like really close friends, like best friends. Like he would tell me a lot of stuff about, what he was going through, friends that he, interactions that he had with friends and stuff, and just situations that would come up, even with people he was dating, and vice versa, right? So I knew the girls he dated, he knew the guys I dated. I mean, that's how good of a friendship we had. We were very open and transparent with each other. And so things just kind of shifted from there and
Really?
became.
Bro, so how long were you in the friend zone, bro? That sounds like a friend zone to me.
Ironically enough, I was probably in there a lot longer than I should have been, because when I really started actively pursuing her, it was because I had found out that she liked me when I was in high school.
Bro.
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
And she went into, like, she almost told me in high school, but she started, and I had interest in her as well. Of course, I don't think at the time I was with my high school sweetheart anymore. But when we were talking, she started telling me about this guy and how wonderful he was and how kind he was. And
Ouch.
yeah, and I was,
Wait, did
yeah,
you do
that's
that on
exactly what I
purpose?
said.
I did.
I said, ouch. And I was like, she was like, yeah. And he, I guess she kind of was wondering if I was trying to, gather that she was talking about me. So she threw in something like a curveball. She said, oh yeah, this guy, he started, he would write me poems and
Oh, snap.
and take me to, and I was just like, man, I can't compete with this guy. Yeah. So later on, we were at a party on the plaza. For those who don't know, it's a party on the plaza. You can do a lot of dancing.
We would go party on
Yeah,
Thursdays.
Guadalupe Plaza, right?
Yeah.
It's
That's right.
there in El
Yep.
Canal. Yeah,
right.
absolutely. Second
And
barrio.
she was with my brother, and she kind of let it slip out that she had a crush on me in high school. So after that, it was kind of like,
So for clarity, I was not with him. We were talking.
yes, yes, communicating, yes, correct. And so once my brother came and told me, this is my twin brother, by the way. So
You have a twin?
yes, I have a fraternal brother.
Well, I knew that, but they don't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like,
Ironically, and
please
we're
tell me
and
that.
I knew that. But,
yeah, just to be clear, yeah, he's also a public servant too.
oh, that's cool. We'll talk a little bit about that. But are you
Yeah.
the better looking one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a little
So
biased,
sorry,
but
bro.
yes.
So, but anyways, my brother came and told me, he's like, hey, you never guess what Delma told me. I was like, what? And when he told me, I was like, get out of here. So after that, I just started pursuing her, and which is exactly what she wanted. She wanted a man to pursue her and to be, I wouldn't say it was like chivalry, had that act. I don't know. You would probably be able to speak a bit more on that.
I think
Yeah.
for me, with what was really important is I think a lot of women are very bold, and they like to be the one. They don't have a problem being transparent and pursuing a man. And even though I'm very vocal and very outspoken on a lot of things, I do feel that the traditional aspect does play a role in my heart and in my mind. I do feel that if a man is pursuing a woman, it brings a different level. It brings a different level of connection to the relationship, and what I mean by that is that there's more on, not only from a traditional standpoint, but the man is interested in her. He's pursuing her. He's seeking her. He's calling her. He's opening the door, right? Being a
Chivalry,
total
old-fashioned.
right. So maybe I'm a little old fashioned in some ways, but I do feel that there is a role that a man plays and there's a role that a female plays. And I knew that what God had given me and put in my heart was I didn't need a man. Like in my mind, I felt that was so strong. Like I can take care of myself. I'm very independent. So if I'm going to be with a man, I want him to play the role of a man and be there for me. And like from the emotional aspect, right? So from a financial aspect, yes, the woman does want security, but there's also a role there that a man in my mind or my heart would play, especially when my dad would do little things for me, right? He would open the door for me, the car door, when we would walk down the street, you stay on the inside of, like, he was protecting me. And so those little things, as I spent time with my dad, I picked up on. It wasn't a whole lot of time that I had with my dad, but the little that I did get from my dad, I was like, man, this is what I need or I want in a man.
Desire.
And I did. I totally desired that. And I wanted, that's where the whole thing of, if I'm going to get with somebody to pursue, I want him to, I mean, if I'm going to get somebody, he's going to have to pursue me, right? To where I don't want to feel like I'm having to chase a man down. If you're interested in me and you want to be with me, then you like have to show it in the little things. And those are the little things, right? Opening the car door, being a gentleman, and just like, here's a glass of water. How can I, like, it's about servanthood, right?
Right.
And when we got married, we served each other. And it was very symbolic, and it's something very non-traditional that we did at our wedding. And we washed each other's feet because it was like, I love you. I am going to serve you. And Desmond did the same thing. So I took off my wedding shoes, and we did that as a symbol in front of everybody to show
That's fire.
everybody that, hey, we're in this for life.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yeah.
there's people that are watching our show. They don't understand that. That don't make no sense to them.
The
I mean, it's a
significance of
biblical
washing.
principle to wash each other's feet. But can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, when you say fire, it wasn't the fact that she didn't have to pull out a chainsaw and start, cleaning my feet, and sparks were flying. It wasn't nothing like that, but it was fire. And
That's joke.
that joke.
That
And I'll say this also, just for a little clarification with it, from my point of view, and I think it's really important for men to understand this. It's okay to be vulnerable. And when I say vulnerable, I'm not talking about going in and sharing and baby, give me a tissue. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having the ability to be hurt and yet still pursue and still try to do the things that you would feel is right in honoring your wife or honoring a person who you would like to be your wife. And it's okay. I tell people all the time, I'm going to give you the truth. I want you to give me the truth, and don't worry about hurting my feelings. They're my feelings. Let me worry about my feelings.
That's good. That's good. I mean, what do you think about the washing of the feet? What do you take from that biblically?
I mean, I wish we would have done that on the mountain. Kidding.
Nice.
I'm joking. But I mean, it's like, we incorporated everything else biblical, but it was, that is something now that, I've seen tons of wedding videos and stuff now. Like, it's becoming not that it's becoming common, but it's a great way that people now are starting their marriage, their new life, their chapter, like washing each other's feet. Jesus washed his disciples' feet before he died on the cross, right? That's the symbolism. He himself humbled himself so much to serve others, even the ones that betrayed him. But so the symbolism of that is like, I am like sacrificing everything for you, to serve you, right? Like, you're humbling yourself because, it's like with every marriage relationship, it's like you kind of have to die to yourself every day, right? We say that all the time. As Christians, we have to die to ourselves every day to serve God, but also to serve our family, to, our husband, our children. And so the symbolism of that is very impactful. And even starting off, during worship music, during your wedding, that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like everybody should probably do that. Like, it's extremely impactful and
I think it's
beautiful.
I think it's beautiful. I mean, think about Jesus himself saying, for the Son of God, speaking of himself, did not come to be served. He came to serve others. And that was the golden rule, the teaching of true humility. And I think that's beautiful, man. Like, people probably wouldn't understand that if they didn't understand the principle behind it. But I think that's absolutely fantastic that you guys did
Were
that.
you guys already walking with Christ or saved at that point when you guys got married?
That's a good question. I don't think we were.
So
We were. Go ahead. I'll let you.
we were like raised in the church, right? So our background was Catholic, right? So we were raised with the Catholic background.
Mhm.
Right before Desmond and I got married, I went through a very it was like a life-changing experience. And it was either I went this direction or I went this direction.
You had to
And
choose your
I
path.
had to really choose a path. And at that point, I was the most broken I had ever been in my life. And because I was so broken at that time, I had tried everything you can think of to numb the pain. And I did a lot of things I was not proud of. But in that journey, I got tired of drinking. I got tired of doing the drugs. I got tired of the next day trying to recover and go to work, right? I felt worse than I did the day before, which wasn't good. And so I got tired of that cycle. And because of that cycle, I finally just got to a point where I didn't care, honestly, if I lived or died. I didn't care if I honestly, I remember looking at Desmond and I was just like, okay, this is going to be a new chapter. And where we go from here, I don't know. But that moment was a surrendering moment for me. And that's where I began my salvation, or I surrendered truly to God. And I remember sitting down in the church, and it was actually the Catholic church at the time. And I remember sitting down at the church and I looked up at the cross and I just said, for whatever it's worth, I am nothing. I'm broken. I have nothing to offer. All I have is brokenness. My soul was broken. I was beyond what a person should feel or go through, but it was like very intense betrayal and hurt because of the people it was from. And it was like I was so hurt by my mom. And I was betrayed, and I was very, very broken and shattered. And at that point, that's when I gave it to God. And I said, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I have nothing to offer, but here I am. Take it for what it is. And I remember being on my knees and I remember crying to God. And I just said, you can have me. I have nothing to offer.
Surrendered.
I had no education. I had a very low paying job. I was about to marry him and I'm like, I don't even know how this is even going to work. Like there was like no way for me to get out of where I was at. And I will tell you that God has made a way.
Amen.
Incredible. That's
Yeah.
powerful.
God has totally
So, I
shifted
mean,
and changed things in my life.
wow. I mean, just speaking of, there's going to be a conversation that the ladies talking. You guys can open up a little bit more about that. Obviously, you guys have been together for 20 years, over 20 years.
Yep.
You got children.
Yes.
Why don't you share about fatherhood, parenting, what's going on there?
Well, I think, since we're on the subject of
Yeah.
marriage, right? I mean, I know we had Justin Howard last week, and, he's also a girl dad. You're a girl dad. You guys have two girls. They're incredible human beings. And we kind of touched on the subject of, like, not so much as parenting advice, but kind of like, we have older daughters that are in, like, the dating years. Lord help us. But no, they're great. But, they're kind of trying to start navigating that kind of era in their lives of wanting to date and, like saving themselves for marriage and like, going to school first. And, like the youngest one is 16 and Mia's 19 and, the other ones are older now. But we kind of touched on that subject, like, even, not just as girl dads, but like, especially because you guys are girl dads, like, what would you say to them? Or
How do I approach it?
yeah, how would you like if you've had conversations already?
Oh yeah, I have. I've had it when they were very young. We have when we're very young, and my whole thought process with it is from a biblical standpoint, where we need to speak in truth and love. And so, for me particularly, building up trust, which is, just should be pretty obvious that you want to build up trust with them. As far as those difficult questions when they ask, I answer, and I tell them the truth, and tell them with love, and they'll ask other questions, and you gotta be able to pivot, to and tell them honestly what your thoughts are with it.
Yeah.
So, but I
Be
also,
honest.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but the last thing is, if we make mistakes during the time, one of the things that I find very important is to let them know, hey, this is the first time you're a child. This is the first time I'm a parent, and so you're gonna make mistakes, and I'm gonna make mistakes, and I gotta let you know, hey, I'm still learning. Let's Please forgive me, and I will go and ask for mercy.
Yeah.
Repent, whatever I need to do, and I hope that they do that in return.
Yeah.
I want to piggyback and add something to that. One of the things that Desmond has done, and this was something I believe it was from Craig Rochelle that we heard on one of his, I don't know if it was a sermon or a podcast, but he had shared where daddy goes out on a date with the guy first. And if daddy approves, then daddy will, and support it, then daddy will support you dating this guy.
Okay, hold up. Wait, what?
Wow.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we have told the girls that, and they know that. So there has been
So
times.
like they meet a boy, they have to go on a date with dad 1st.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we
That's good.
It's pretty good. You bring your gun?
oh,
Not to that date.
Not to that one.
Those guns, right?
those guys, yeah. No, but and like I said, it goes to the importance of them trusting you and understanding the that we want the best for them, and we try to make it really clear that we're going to be their best advocate next to God. God's going to be their best avenue and advocate for them. So we make sure that they understand that it's in our it's genuinely in our heart to want to have the best for them, and that includes their husband, their future spouse.
And what time, like, do you guys have like an age where they're allowed
Well, first
to
of all, how
date?
old are they now?
10 and 11.
10 and
10 and
11.
11. Okay, they're
So we started having this discussion with them when they were little. So we raised them with the expectation of one day y'all are going to start dating boys, or you might get interested in dating boys. And when you decide that you do want to have a boyfriend or you want to date somebody and get serious, these are the expectations. So even though Maddie's in 5th grade, she's had, and she's going to 6th grade in the fall, she's had a little boy express interest in her. She's like, well, if you want to go out with me, you're going to have to go talk to my daddy first. Right. And I know it's very innocent right now.
Yeah.
Right. It's very innocent.
It's pretty cool.
But they understand that we're doing it to protect them. They're doing it, because we want to be transparent. We are telling them like, hey, if y'all got questions, come to us.
Right.
Because you know what? Your friends, they're going to have maybe a piece of the story. They're not going to have the full story, or they're not going to tell you the truth on everything because they probably don't know it, or they're going to put it in their own words, right? It was like when we were growing up. Do you remember telephone? It would start off one way, and then by the time it got all the way around,
Yeah,
it was
completely
something totally different. And so I tried to explain that to the girls, and I'm like, you might have something like that. They might think you're going to hear things. And if you're not sure what you're hearing at school, come to me, come to your dad. We're always going to tell you the truth. And even if I don't like what I have to say, I said, I will always tell you the truth. I may not like it. I said, but come to me because I will always guide you the best way.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of something that we have talked to them about since they were
young.
like young. And to me, because of my background and what I've had, which was there's a lot of abuse, I had to, and it was like every form of abuse, physical, sexual, verbal, right, mental. So it was just like, I wanted to make sure I ingrained in them at an early age, we developed the trust. And we developed the truth and transparency.
Wow.
And this is an extension of our marriage too. So we're trying. It starts with God, and we're trying to have transparency, which is obvious. He knows already, but we try to have truth and love with God, and with from that standpoint, and then we bring it down to our marriage, and we have honest conversations, and sometimes it's hard. A lot of it has been hard. It's work.
Yeah.
And then
it
from
is.
that aspect they're seeing it, and we bring it down to the next level, which is there.
I know my wife will probably ask a question on this. We're gonna talk about some things real quick, but we're gonna go back into the kids. But like, what age did you guys get married?
28.
28.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have I got a couple stats here. The American Journal talks about in 2023 the average age of a young man getting married is the age of 28.4, and for a woman it's 30.2.
Interesting.
That's extended, right? But if you
Oh
look
no,
at
28 for women and 30 for men.
yes, correct.
Oh, I was
I
gonna say,
apologize.
I
I
was
read it
like, oh,
backwards. But in the
man.
Yeah.
in the 50s,
Yeah.
they were getting married at the age of 22 and 19. So you got to see is like, I know that we've expanded on waiting longer to get married. I mean, what do you think was your take for you guys to wait? I mean, obviously you guys are career. Let's talk about your career real quick, and then we'll jump back into it. So you are
Yeah, I work with the Houston Fire Department. I'm a paramedic. Been doing it since 2002. So
okay, cool. Delma?
I'm an HR professional. I have done human resource work for 20 years.
20 years. So what was the delay? I mean, what would you say would be the delay for you guys to wait till the age of 28 slash?
well, yeah, it was life, I would say, because there was a point initially that we had considered getting married sooner, and it was based upon life. Delma's father went into hospice. He had
Oh, wow.
what's it called?
Glioblastoma.
Yeah, glioblastoma multiforme.
It's a brain cancer.
And he went into hospice, and we had a lot of tough conversations about it. And this is why we were still trying to learn about each other. And so I guess it's one of those things that when you have such a difficult situation on top of a difficult situation with what she was battling before, with all the trauma that she had bared, and I guess when you have somebody there, who's willing to battle it with you, I mean that just brings love. So, but that to answer your question, it was that, and then we went into I was starting my career, so there was a bit of
Schooling.
preparing to
Yeah,
do
kind of
it.
like because like I guess building something.
Yeah,
And I
and,
mean, I
and then there
think
was also we're enjoying each other, and at some point I was like, I don't feel like having kids just yet. Now, if she would have said, hey, we're gonna have kids, I'm all okay, we're gonna have kids, but
I think for me, going back to, there's two things that come to mind for me when you asked that question. The first thing was I was in my 20s still trying to figure out what I needed to do with my life, where I wanted to go. I felt like I could barely make ends meet. And I like I said earlier, I was at this point in my life where it was just pure chaos, and I didn't even know if I was going to live or die. I didn't care, right? But then the other thing was I grew up in a broken home. My mom got remarried, and that's where the abuse came in. And I was just like, I don't want to get married. Like, and I'm like, why do I need to get married? I'm okay with not getting married, right?
Seeing things from a fractured lens.
Right. And I didn't want to have kids because I thought it was cruel to bring kids into the world. I didn't know God the way I know God today, right? But it was still like, yeah, I'm okay if I don't get married, right? And I'm okay if I just take care of myself, which is why it was like when I married my husband, yes, I love my husband. I married him with, also I'm like, I had this thought process of like companionship. So when I tell you I really needed to find myself and who I was and who God made me to be, and this was this whole surrendering moment, that really was a very pivotal moment in my life. Because it was like, okay, I'm getting married. Okay, I'm about to finish school. Okay, I'm starting my career. Okay, so it was, I was like, I need to figure out how we're going to do this if we're going to get married. where do we go from here?
Yeah.
You were going to share
And I
something,
think
right?
that's, yeah, I think, before, like in the, when most people got married younger, it was probably, I don't know. There's enough, I'm sure, different
Give and
factors,
take.
but,
Yeah.
women mainly probably weren't going into a career field and stuff like that. And they just got married younger and, back then. But I think that's really important to know who you are first before you get married. Because marriage is hard enough as it is already. Like we mentioned this before. It's like marriage is a choice every single day to continue to love that person.
Yep.
Day in, day out. And not that it's going to be perfect and that you're going to just, be wanting to be all over them every single time. No, it is hard enough to wake up every day and love the same person.
Right.
Till
That's a
death you
choice.
part, right? I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
when you still don't know who you are, you're still trying to figure
Right.
yourself out. How can you give yourself to somebody else
Right.
without knowing who you truly are first,
Right.
and foremost? And then second, like, because of all the challenges already, and marriage is great, and we're all for marriage, it's just, we have, a daughter that's getting married, right, at a young age too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, so this is like, that's why we're talking about, like, this is conversations we've had even recently with our daughter,
Right.
and in that sense of, and they love each other, and that's great. It's just, as parents, we want to try to keep them from avoiding mistakes, right? Like,
Right.
not that we're going to succeed in everything, but we try to at least give them the best advice we can based on what we know, right? And because there's already challenges in this day and age, right? Because of social media, all the dating apps, and just in general, the world, knowing who you are first, having some sort of financial security.
That's going next to it. Like, we're going to talk about security because we're talking about career. Look, the Kids Data Account Center, that's another status that I got right now. The median income for the family of parents, like married parents in 2023, is an estimate of $132,000. That's to survive, quote unquote. And father in a home, it says 62,000, and an additional 39,000 probably if both of them are working, like a dual income. So most people would say, well, I'm not ready to have kids because I don't have enough money. Right now, as of 2023, recently the stats say that it takes about $123,000 to live comfortable ish right now. That's not including inflation and everything that's going on with the whole Bidenomics and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. I don't care if you cancel me about that, but anyway. But it's just like, think about it. Years ago, man, if we made $25,000-$30,000, we made it work.
Yeah.
But I guess today, obviously, we can't make it work with $40,000. We it is what it is according to the stats. I mean, if it's single mothers, imagine with single mothers living trying to make $40,000. That's kind of like just trying to ease on by. I mean, rent is not cheap. Inflation has gone up, and that kind of deters people now. Like young couples, they get married, late 20s, early 30s, don't have kids, buy a dog. Because a dog, at least, the vet bills are expensive, but not as expensive as raising a child, right?
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah, but I mean, like we've had, Danny, my husband,
I'm old fashioned, and I will
very
offend
old
everybody.
fashioned, and I will, I love his heart that he is for love and strictly love. I mean, he's just like, love conquers all. But we've said it before, love doesn't pay the bills.
Correct.
It's like,
That's true.
and it, like I said, in having these conversations, because our kids now are becoming of age. You guys have younger kids that eventually you guys will have the same conversation with at some point,
Mm-hmm.
If they were 19 or 18 fresh out of high school, they're like, Mom, we really, really love each other and we want to get married, and they don't have a job and they're barely still in school and living at home. Like,
How would you approach that?
Um, besides having the long conversation, it would pretty much be the same rules apply. You speak in truth and love. So you would tell them, hey, look, this is what our hopes would be for you. Here's going to be the pitfalls. And this is just me particularly because I feel I feel very strongly in people making their own choices. And God gives us the ability to make our own choices. And so I'm not going to take that away from, I don't want to take that away from anybody unless they're like, they want to choose to kill me or something. That's wild like that. But for the most part, and I've had to deal with those tough choices in my life, with my parents and my sister, where there's been life choices and what do they want to do in the end at their end stages, or in my job, and how those things where people are on death's doornail and figuring out what they want to
Yeah,
do.
that's pretty heavy.
So the same rule would apply for them. Like, hey, look, this is what you have now. Now, if they decide to continue, for me particularly, I would vouch, okay, hey, look, we'll take you in then, because we if we can, we have the room. We'll let you stay here and get married and stay here, and we're gonna help prepare y'all to have your own place. Because at the end of the day, we're, I guess, how the Bible says it particularly, those who inherit, and you know, maybe you can help me with this because it's almost there, but those who have inheritance for their grandchildren is a blessing, something along those lines.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So leave an inheritance for your children and your children's children.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is what it's
absolutely.
called. Yeah.
And so, and that's just part of the process. If we can help them get ahead by saving them on rent, saving them on electricity, and helping them understand. And there's always that process too, where we can say, hey, look, we're going to have you pay rent. So you can, of course, and then when they're ready to go, hey, look, here's your rent money. Here's all this.
Yeah.
Take it with our blessing.
This truly love.
I think Desmond will do that. I think this is where opposites really attract, right?
Yeah.
I think my thought process, naturally will be in my emotions, right? And but I will let my emotions. I'm not one to let my emotions dictate my actions. But I think for me, I would ask them, talk to me on what you think marriage is. Right. So I would want them, what does marriage mean to you? Talk to me about marriage. What's your role in a marriage? What's your role in a marriage? How do y'all think, like me and your dad, and I would talk to my daughters, right? Me and your dad, you grew up in the household, you've seen me and your dad. You've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, right?
Right.
And what's your take? Have I set a good example, right? Is this the example? What did I do good? What did I do bad? And how was I a good wife, right? And let's talk about that, what it means for you. As a woman, what does that mean for you and what you're going to take into this marriage? I'm not saying don't get married, right?
Right.
But it's like, this is something for the rest of your life, right? So if you make this decision,
That'll be a wise choice.
it's got to be a wise choice. I'm raising you, and I'm trying my best to raise you to make this decision and make a wise decision. Like, this is the only person that you are going to be married to for the rest of your life. Because you know what? Marriage is a lot of work. You said it earlier. You have to choose to love that person. You might not always like the person, but you have to choose to love the person.
That's a choice.
And I can't remember, was it Matt Chandler?
I make it a little tough.
What did he say?
Or Francis Champ, but it was like to die is the gain.
Well, yeah, that's from Philippians. To live is to Christ, and to die is gain.
To die is the gain. Okay, I heard it from, and I think because
that was from.
Yeah, I think because they said that, but that's something that you take into a marriage, right? And it's just it's a very selfless act for you to sit there and do that. And are you ready? Right? Because typically when you are thinking of a teenager, especially we're saying your daughter is still fairly young, right? Typically, this is where they go. You either go to college, you start going to a trade school, you start, and not to say that they're not going to do that, right? But do you want that? Because chances are you'll probably meet somebody here. Do you need to do it today? Maybe y'all can wait a little bit longer, right? What's going to be the wise choice here? And I would just try to maybe ask them questions and have them and open-ended questions to have them talk to me.
Yeah.
and not give them a yes or no answer.
Right.
Do you, instead of saying, do
Yeah.
you think this is the right choice for you? Yeah, yes, no, no. And I would have to reword the question to get them to have their
And I
thoughts
think
going.
at the end of the day, they're still going to do what kids they always think they know the best, right?
Right.
And what's
Pretty well.
best for them is best for them in their minds, right? Like we can try to guide them as best as we can. But at the end of the day, it is going to be their choice. And
It'll
so,
be a choice.
yeah.
And I think they're looking for a great thing, a wonderful thing to be married, and most people don't even want to get married nowadays.
That's true. That's
And
that's another stat that I was about to pull up.
I would venture to say that the reason why they don't want to get married is, well, for the main reason is because they're not ready.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah. You know, marriage rates is 51% failure first marriage. And it goes even higher for your second marriage.
Not for us,
67.
though. We're
And for
lifers.
us, like,
Yeah.
Hey, I told Desmond when Desmond proposed to me, my exact words to him were like, for real? Like, I didn't give him a yes. I didn't give him a no. I was like, for real? This is like for life, dude. Like,
Are you sure? Double sure.
no refunds, bruh.
And tell them what you said.
you're dumb.
Well, I mean, you went in pretty deep. Kind of scared me, but
Go
What
ahead.
do you say?
And then,
What'd she say? Then what?
And
no.
then,
So she basically she basically said that she was broken, and why do you want me? I'm broken. I have nothing to offer you. You know.
wow.
I did. I told him that. I said, why me, Desmond? You don't need me. I said, you're a great guy. I am so broken. I have so much baggage. Like, I have all this here. Like, why me? Go find somebody that you can marry that's not going to be so messed up. Of course, I didn't use that word, but my language is a little more
Yes,
colorful back then.
Yeah.
But BC days before Christ. And I said, no. And he's like on his knees talking to me, and he's like,
What was your response? What did you say to that?
And this is where I say a man should be vulnerable. There was a good book, and I think it was in the 1920s. I want to say the book was called "A Man of Steel and Velvet," and so the thought process behind it is, and it's biblically based, but it talks about how you should be vulnerable and knowing that you can get hurt, but you're still willing to be strong and courageous and take the effort. Because we're called to take the hit sometimes. And in that aspect,
That was pretty cool, though. I mean, you got to understand that you wanted something like a hero, a father type, the chivalry, the gentleman, the old fashioned. And God, by design, gives you Desmond, and he's on his knee, and he's like, I still want you.
that's exactly what I said.
but you know what he told me?
Wow, that's powerful, man.
And I had nothing to say when he told me that. He goes, that is not your choice. That is my choice, and you cannot take that from me.
Ooh, wow, bro. Bro.
And I was just like,
Bro, that's a bumper sticker.
Yeah, I got it from a movie or something.
That is so fire, but that is a romance. That is a
romance.
You know what?
Yeah.
And kind of thinking a little bit more about your dad. I never really considered it until you were speaking about him right now. I think I did in some form or fashion. We kind of had the same heart. We share the same type of heart. The only thing is that his heart was broken, to pieces, and where mine, God kept me there and gave me wisdom to see things and to follow Him, and gave me mercy when I needed it.
Right.
So fast forward, like you guys are married. How long did you guys wait to have kids?
we were together almost
Probably about
10
11
years.
years ago. 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I guess 10
Yeah,
years.
we were
like,
together almost 10 years
Yeah.
before
Okay, so you got married at 28. Wait quite a while.
We
You
waited.
have kids.
Yeah.
Was it conditions of figuring out? Was it career, money? Was it like a capita that you needed to make that you felt okay? Now we're ready to have
I think
kids.
we were
How did you
enjoying-
approach this?
I think we were just enjoying each other.
We were enjoying our marriage. In my mind, we were enjoying our marriage. I was going to college. I was very strategic. I did not want to get in debt. So we didn't go buy a house. I wanted to make sure I graduated college and not have debt.
Yeah.
And I
was
wanted
working.
to, Desmond was working, and I wanted to make sure, like, we were, like, as I was paying for school, I was also making sure we were paying off some debt that we had when we got married. But it was also us, we wanted to travel. So we did travel a lot before the kids. And not that it stopped, but but we did more traveling without the kids.
Yeah.
And but I also wanted a house. I wanted a foundation with hey, I got a home and we've got our first baby. That's kind of the thought that I had.
makes
And
sense.
here we go. We got the room, and this is what it looks like. Okay, and this is our home, right? And so that was kind of the thought process. But I was very, very colorful in my days. I had a lot of fun, and I wanted to make sure that I got a lot of that out of my system
Oh wow.
before
Yeah.
I had kids.
Wow.
It's not judgmental, but there's a stats. The numbers never lie. Do you know no one else thinks that way other than Americans?
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, and I
So
would.
to delay to have kids, like the average. This is another review right now. This is another stat. We're on a deficiency and decline right now to have kids.
Absolutely. We're on the verge.
Nobody
of-
wants to have kids. So there's 1.9 kids per family. From before, it used to be 2, maybe 3 kids was an automatic. We had big families, a lot of kids. Now there's like one is enough, and 2, oh no, 2 is like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, we're not trying to, I'm not trying to make a daycare here or whatever. And then it goes back into the thing. You're like, how much does it cost to raise a kid? $288,000 is what they hear, and it's $16,000 per year, $1,300 an average of $1,300.34 a month. This is the numbers, right? This is what they push on us. So all this is constantly being taught. But no one outside of Western civilization, including USA, thinks this. No one does. So, matter of fact, we are in a decline. And sounds political, but we are in a decline in the United States to have kids, number one, to stay married, number two. Number three, there's now something called DINKs. Have you heard of DINKs? Dual income, no children.
Oh,
This
yes.
is a trend.
Yes, I have.
DINC. DINC. Dual income, no children.
So Victor's doing right now. No, I'm just kidding.
That's
How's that working out for you?
That's his
Oh, no, you
That's
kids,
his
you have
hopes
kids.
and aspirations.
No, it's crazy. It's like this whole thing. It's a trend. It's all over TikTok. Not that I'm on TikTok, but they call it DINKs. Dual income, no children. And what do they use? Like, our goal is to make 200K together, travel, get a pet rock, maybe, and that's life. But no one is pushing this other than Western civilization. Like, US is the only one that's pushing this. So I respect everything that we want to be prepared and everything. But don't you think that that's kind of like a deception?
It is 100% a deception, and I would say that, man.
He disagrees.
Oh, Victor is like squirming in his seat.
And please forgive me, because I feel very strongly about this. It's a foolish notion, and hear me out on this, because I don't think people quite understand the importance of children. Besides the fact that if we continue going this rate, our whole economy will eventually collapse, because you're not going to have people who are working coming in who's gonna help us when we retire, and how the economy works. But more to the point on that is that kids are one of the best investments that you could ever do. When you leave this earth, that investment will be, if you're blessed, tenfold from what you've done.
Legacy.
Yes, and I can say this with confidence. In my work, it breaks my heart, because there's people will die and they're alone, and we'll find them later, and they didn't have kids, or maybe their kids, they had one kid and He's way somewhere not near him. And it's because a lot of times we tend to, what's the word I'm looking for? You're all about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of those things when you start having kids, if as you follow God, and if you are, when you start having kids, you understand that it's more, you become more of a servanthood, even more so, and you start learning about surrendering your life for other people. So
That's pretty good. Now, I will tell you this because geopolitically, do you know that China, they had the one child per rule? You
they
know what I'm
had to
saying?
switch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to switch it. They recently found out 20 years ago that they're in decline, that their whole infrastructure is about to fall apart. So now automatically they're like, we need you to have 3 kids
Hmm. They're probably
per family.
promoting it and
Mm-hmm.
incentivizing it and stuff.
Yeah,
And
they're
I think
incentivizing it.
Greece, I think
Absolutely.
Greece is in the same. Yeah.
Same decline. Greece is one of the other ones that's a population that's declined. I mean, they said, but there's so many kids here. Well, yeah, they're all immigrants.
Hmm.
Everybody that came here, like we're an immigrant
And
country,
we're having it here too.
and they're coming in and they have lots of kids. And guess what? You know, okay, I'm gonna say it. Whatever. I don't care. So Muslims
Hmm.
believe.
Yes, I know where you're going.
You know what Muslims believe?
Hmm.
They must have as many kids as possible because that is part of their conquest of Western civilization to transform. That is part of their MO
They're playing
for
the long
jihad
game.
Yep.
to take over. Once they become 13% of the population, they take over the country. That's why they've gone into Europe. That's why they go. And they repopulate. And they themselves tell the others, are like, you guys aren't having kids. We're having tons of them and we're going to take over your country.
Hmm.
That's how they think.
Yep.
If they can't conquer by the sword, as they believe,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to conquer by reproduction. Did you know that?
Yep. Nice.
You know that. You know.
Yep.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
No comment.
No comment.
I don't know.
What do you think?
I think that is the absolute truth. I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
I do think that it goes back to things that are opposite or things that are not in our control, right? People are so hungry for power and control and all that. And I think if we follow and we live, what our faith is, right? We serve a God of love, right? And what does God say, right? God says to go out there and reproduce, right? God shows you the way. God blesses you with, he is ultimately your provider, right? And he has one, and even when you read the Bible and you look at what he has done when it comes to war, he has never failed, right? And so I think he is somebody that is going to provide. And again, it's
Yeah.
a war, right? Whether you're Muslim or you're Christian, right? Your beliefs are your beliefs, but it's like really research, go and know and explore. Don't be afraid to ask the questions and dig deep into, well, why? Why do we only have one kid? Why are we only having 2 kids? And that's where I was going earlier with the kids. I want them to know how to think for themselves.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be like, oh, well, this is the way it's always been, and I'm just go ahead and do it, right?
Well, the
And
truth is because of the numbers.
following
The
but
numbers.
like
It's just
ask,
the numbers.
Right.
ask at the end of the day, ask. Why did China have it for so long with only kids? What's the point of that? Like understanding, you always go with the 5 whys, right? And if you keep asking, well, why that? Well, why that? Well, why that? And then you eventually get to that deeper layer.
Yeah.
So it's also not only from that standpoint with your school, profession, religion, and anything that your walk with God, you've got to ask the whys,
Yeah.
So we're all
Going back to the
You
one
wanted to share
kid now that most people are only having like 1 or 2 kids or whatever. But I think, and I know you said it's because mainly here in in America, right? But I also feel like even the cost of living and
Mhm.
life, even just life itself in Europe
Yeah.
is,
It's so cheap now.
I mean, not only is it
It's
like
crazy cheap.
so much cost of living is cheaper in Europe, but they live life like they're not
They walk everywhere. They're healthy.
American, like where
They're
they
so good, man.
are just work, and then maybe later have a life kind of thing. But I think that also comes to a point where like it's harder to have more kids now because we can't afford to have more kids anymore. Like back in the day, right? Like when people would have like five
It's
kids. I'm one of five. I'm like, I don't
yeah,
know how
it's
my
like
parents did
anything
it, but
else. It's a sacrifice. So, and we're talking about. I'll take it back to the investment aspect. Are you willing to invest long term, or are you going to invest short term? Because a lot of times people will, and I'm generalizing, but a lot of times people will spend on the short term, and then when they get older, and they don't have anything. You know.
but my point was, it's like, say, take our income combined right now.
Mm-hmm.
We make a decent income. But if we had five kids, like five little kids,
Mm-hmm.
we'd be poverty level.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we have 5 kids combined as a blended family.
But now that they're older, you
Now
know,
they're
we've
older.
raised them separately. But
Mhm.
now, like
Mhm.
in our combined income, or even in my own income, if I had five kids, I'd be poverty level. Like
Yeah.
I
And
wouldn't be sitting here right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's, if I was in Europe, maybe I could afford them.
and I can tell you, I guess for me particularly, we, me and my brothers, I grew up in a family of 7, so five kids, and yeah, we were very much in poverty,
Yeah.
very much so. Um,
But could you tell the difference, bro?
I couldn't, but and here's the point now.
You had a great time.
Looking at it now, um, when my parents, as they passed away, they were truly blessed because they looked and they saw the investment that they did, and being particular with it. I honestly and truthfully believe that it was for the betterment of society because my sister passed away. She had spinal bifida, and so she couldn't walk. And there was a lot of you know there was a lot of issues with it, but there was also we all learned what it meant to help her and to
Serve.
and to serve.
Yeah, to serve
Yeah.
heart of service.
And guess what?
Yeah.
And guess what? We all do. The rest of the brothers, we all serve.
You guys are serving. You're public
Yeah,
servants.
we're all servants. We're all public servants.
All of you guys in the fire
And
department.
looking well, 2 of us are in the fire, 2 of us are in police officers.
That's great.
And what ends up happening is, if you look at the investment that my parents did, it's better for society.
You
Because
guys,
yeah,
Yeah.
because we're all
Yeah.
there, and that's kind of what I was referring to. You know,
Yeah.
it is tough. You know, but like in a sense, my parents were playing the long game.
Yeah.
So, and they didn't have TVs back in those
I
days.
agree with that.
I don't think you're going off of your mention of growing up poor. I
Yeah.
don't know if you fit the stats because
Right.
I think a lot of kids that grow up poor end
Right.
up being more of a detriment and a weight to society in a lot of occasions, more than go and become public servants and make something
Right.
of themselves.
Right. Yeah,
So-
I would agree with you
So
on that.
imagine if there's 10 families, you're one,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say out of those 10,
Mhm.
3 go and become public servants,
Mhm.
lawyers, doctors, you know, maybe, I don't know, whatever, right? Manager at Chick-fil-A, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the rest perpetuate the cycle, also live poverty, also live off the system, maybe are in crime.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe it was a product of having great parents. And
Yes.
stuff like, right? But
That's great.
there's
Parents.
also a lot of parents that are poor. And I did want to mention this earlier because you brought it up, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. No offense, but when you mentioned the Muslims or the Middle Easterns, right?
Mhm.
They believe in family unity when raising children.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they have a lot of kids, because they will get their finances, they'll pull their finances, they'll have their brothers and sisters, they'll
Yeah.
live in the same home. They'll
Yes.
co-parents, so the family, that's the problem with Americans. We've lost our family connections. We've been
Yeah, the family
convinced
unit has been
that
diminished.
even though my brother lives in Spring, I live in the Galleria, my sister lives in some part of Houston, my other sister lives in Conroe. So what happens? It's gonna be hard for each person to individually fund their children. But when you pull your money
Mhm.
together, while you save and take care of your kids, your family builds a bond. So when you're older, you go, oh wait, I love growing up with my cousins. I love growing up. We all live together. It perpetuates that, which allows the families to grow.
Yeah.
Finances at the end of the day is a big thing, like Darlene said. But I think that's one of the things that we got away from that, from the family unit.
The family
I would
unit has
agree.
always been diminished, but it's always
So
been under attack.
Yeah,
it
and I would
has.
agree with you.
It has,
100%.
but I hear you completely, and I think some of that can go back to what you were saying, spot on as far as the family. But then then I also want to challenge that thought too, because even though I grew up in a family environment, I also did not have that, right? Like I did not, like I was raised with an image or facade on what you're saying, right? Where we did have that like on the surface level, right? But then it was not really truly unity, right? That you're talking about. And I grew up poor, but yet, like you said, there was somebody that was there, but I should have been a statistic out of the 7. And by God's grace, I don't want to forget God in it all, because you know what?
Yeah.
What God
This is
has
true.
done for me. Oh my gosh, I should have been a statistic.
100%.
Yeah.
I was 14 years old living on the streets. So I should have easily been somebody that got pregnant when I got raped. I should have been easily somebody that had been a high school dropout. I should have easily gone
Absolutely.
and get hooked up in drugs, heavy drugs. And somehow God didn't allow me to go that way, right?
true.
So I cannot forget God. So I hear you, but God is in the center of a lot of the families, or you're like, there's a purpose, there's a destiny that we are all called. He has made us for something very specific. He has made us for this time. He has made us for our spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were designed to be with your spouse. I was he was designed for me.
Yeah.
But I think God, it has to be the center of it all. As broken as you are, He is our only hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think,
This is good.
Yeah, and
You know-
there's some more stuff about it, about the statistic aspect of it, and I would agree with you. And yes, my family, I had both of my parents,
Yep.
and they had chose to stay together, and that's part of what it is. And like I said, my sister had spinal bifida, so that just that hardship with that. And I'll tell you, there was times where we didn't have food, and the church provided. Yeah. And there was times, oh man, just one beautiful thing that my mother taught me was one day I didn't have one day for Christmas I wanted something very particularly. I couldn't even tell you what it was. But my mother didn't have we didn't have the money. And so what she gave me was a letter and telling me how much she loved me even though she couldn't give that. And I was probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7. But man, how that opened up my heart to understand. And she took the she became vulnerable and allowed me to see that. And that was a choice on her part to see how I would react to it. And of course it was one of those life moments that paved the way for me to one of those pillars to keep me up. So
and I think, like both you and Danny grew up in a whole family unit with 2 very good parents. You're a pastor's kid, raised in church. You had great parents as well. Delma and I didn't. We both grew up in a dysfunctional family unit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my parents were together, but it was very dysfunctional. And I didn't realize I grew up in a dysfunctional home until years later, in my 20s or 30s when I was in therapy. My therapist is the one that's like, so you grew up in a dysfunctional home? And I was like, what? I did? Like, I would have never labeled it that. For me, that was my norm. But that I chose, like Delma said, I could have easily been a statistic. I was pregnant at 18. I could have not graduated high school and been on welfare and just married my son's dad. And maybe, I'd have a good life later on or something. I don't know. But I chose that also. For me, I was the oldest out of 5, and there's 5 of us, and we grew up fairly middle class ish, but we lived in a 1,500 square foot home. There was 5 of us. It was like, even still to this day, I don't even remember where everybody slept. Like, I have no idea how we made it work. But anyway, I could have just as easily been a statistic, like Delma said. But we chose not to. And now looking back because we walk with Christ, it's like now you're able to pinpoint, like, oh my God, at everything God's brought us through, right? That's why we're so passionate about this, right? And the whole family unit. And I know I didn't get married till for the first time till I was 44, but don't recommend that to anybody. It's just I knowing like I was kept trying. I feel like probably God was trying to kind of bring me back to like walk the narrow path, and I just kept going right, left, 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 taking detours, right, until I found him. But going back, like you said, even though I had two parents in the home, it was very dysfunctional. You didn't grow up with two parents in the home, and we could have taken a different route, but we chose not to.
Right.
That was a choice.
And it was a choice. But generally speaking, like if you statistic wise, right, if you generalize, yes, statistics will show that most people that grew up in the home environment that we grew up in would have chosen a completely different route than what we're walking in and living now.
The quote unquote burden to society.
Right.
Yeah.
The statistics of single parents
you have
and all that kind of stuff.
siblings.
I do.
What was their? I'm not remember what they do now, or, but are they similar to what you?
I have an older brother and I have a younger brother. And my older brother, he is he owns his own company where he lays tile floor for a living, so flooring. He's also a musician, recently saved, and he has
He's a good drummer.
he's pursued his passion to really grow in God and live to offer that as a sacrifice to God, right? And I have a younger brother who my older brother does a lot of the blue collar work, so he's in it. Even though he owns the company, he's laying and doing the hard labor work, right? My younger brother, he went to school, and I refer to him as the golden child because he was able to go to school and then go beyond his bachelor's and get his master's, right? And I've been envious of that because I didn't have that opportunity. I put myself through bachelor's, and that was good enough, right, to get me going with the intent to go back, and I never did. But
It's okay. It took me 12 years to go back and get my master's. You have plenty of time.
I still have time. But he doesn't have the physical aspect or labor. Like he's kind of what you would want from like what you were talking about, like the American dream. And it's just like you want better for the next generation, and you want to give your kids something better. And he had that. He had that opportunity, right? So
You know, something that we were talking about, like we were talking about career, we're talking about marriage, how you guys met, our friendship, and then obviously we're talking about the influence on how society kind of like wants to, you know, I would say instruct and yet sometimes mislead, and mostly sometimes mislead, and then others try more manipulate and dominate. But if you see the principle behind it, of us just really just narrowing it down to the fabric of society. Like what I love, I'm really a humongous history buff, so I love reading stats. Fabric of society fell apart in 1946 of the Western culture. That was the decline of the fabric of the design and the falling. It was World War II. As soon as Hiroshima was bombed, immediately the beginning came to where it was just like, okay, the atom bomb came. Now what we have to do is, since we caused destruction, and this is facts, this has been proven. There's other documents even on the board that you can look up on all of this. Once that happened, they realized, we opened Pandora's box. We just killed 230,000 people with one bomb, and then the second bomb, 140 plus the extent of the radiation in Nagasaki and in Japan, right? So it's like the U.S. kind of like opened Pandora's box, and they're like, we should have never done that. And then that's whenever they said, well, now because we look like the bad guys, we're gonna have to control the narrative. And then the narrative started being in control where like, well, this is what a family function works. This is what a good marriage works. This is what you're supposed to do. This is the house you're supposed to buy. This is what you're supposed to drive. This is what the women stay home. This is what they wear. This is what they cook. Everything was already predetermined how they wanted to control the narrative of American culture. Then taxes came in. Then obviously 60s rolled around. There was a person that came against them. He was the president of the United States. He was assassinated. We'll not go into that. There's going to be files that are going to be released pretty soon about that. JFK was assassinated. He was the only one that was against this motive of this apparatus that they were trying to push. And whenever that happens, the facade continues. The war in Vietnam. OBJ decides to say, we're just going to keep on going. And there was so much stuff that's going on. But in the midst of that, let's go ahead and drop something to kind of, let's keep them occupied. The revolution, drugs, sex, independence, and then feminism was introduced in 1977. Feminism immediately took empowerment through the late 70s and 80s. Women were empowered. The decline of families fell apart. As a matter of fact, African Americans were the ones that took the worst hit. If you actually look at the numbers, African Americans were the ones that were most decimated from the 70s because they were introduced to something called abortion. And this eugenics to them have the highest number for African American babies than any other. They don't lie. The numbers don't lie. But they were told that they were okay to have a choice. The choice is there. Everybody knows it was a lie between Roe versus Wade. It happened here in Houston. It was a lie. It was based on a lie. They pushed that narrative and continue to kick that can down the road. And everything was an attack on what? On family and truth. Anything that's a fabric of God, the enemy will always attack. We are believers, right? So I'm going to believe that everything starts spiritual. You'll be like, okay, well, you're being super fanatical. And we talked about this, right? Oh, you're being super fanatical. You're being super religious. No. Let's just talk the facts. It starts spiritual. Then it becomes mental. And then it becomes physical. And that's exactly how the principle of all life happens.
That's right.
Lie is just produced. They influence. It's always been spiritual from the very beginning, because had it not been that way, like you wouldn't have to gone through what you've gone through because of the fall of mankind. It's like there's people out there that something was introduced to them. They're hurt. They decide to hurt other people. They were abused. They abuse other children. And then we become part of that collateral damage. And then it extends to where I'm going to kind of land, and I'll let you guys talk. But this is, if something is a truth, there's always going to be some push against it to make it a lie. That's just the way it is. And usually, what is absolute truth? Not subjective truth. Subjective truth comes from everybody's perception and being of it. That's fine. That's free will. That's your choice. But absolute truth is established by a creator. That's where we get morality from. Right? That's why Darwin could not prove where we got morality from. That is from God. That is a gift that God gave us.
Yes.
So because he is God, some people believe he's not a good God. I believe he's a great God. I think he's a fair God.
Yes.
And so when that happens in the perception, when we continue to move forward, what goes attack it? Attack the family, attack the truth. What is the truth? No. You don't need two parents. You can do this on your own. And then the statistics grow. The government will take care of you. We'll raise your kids. But as we raise your kids, we're going to go ahead and indoctrinate them for you. So we'll go ahead and poison them. We'll give them the worst food ever and WIC and all that kind of stuff. And we'll send them to school. We'll raise them for you while you work two jobs because you're a single mom. We're proud of you. We're proud of you. We'll raise them for you. And then next thing you know, you grow up and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't even know my kids anymore. And they're introduced to everything else, indoctrinated. And these numbers, they continue to push it in their head. You can do better, but this is what it is. You really don't have to do this. I know your parents did this, but you don't really you can be yourself. You can choose your gender. You can do that. We've already been down this road. So we're parents now trying to navigate that. Now we understand why my kids, like my son is married. And I asked him, son, you're going to have a kid? He's like, no, dad. I wouldn't bring a kid into this world right now. This world going to hell. And I understand what he's saying. And I'm like, yo, you're 25. And I understand you're not where you want to be financially, but no one will ever be there financially to have a kid. You can be a millionaire and you'll be like, I'm not ready. Well, it's just really that deep down inside, you don't want to take on that responsibility, one, or you don't want that child to suffer, number two, or maybe you're a kid yourself and you need some growing up to do and you don't want to have him be collateral or caught in between the crossfire.
What about as a Christian?
If you're a Christian, I don't
Where's that
understand.
excuse?
So what?
What's the excuse as a Christian?
As a Christian, I have no idea, man. I mean, I can't justify the Christian. If the excuse of it as a Christian, it says go and reproduce. That is what God says. That's a commandment. If you're a Christian and you're a believer in Christ, and I'm a ruffle feathers like I always do, and you're not having kids, take it on with God, bro.
Yeah.
I didn't make the rules. He's the one that said it.
I would say you lack trust in him that everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Maybe you don't trust yourself to raise them. Maybe you were hurt. Maybe you're fractured. I don't know.
yeah.
Or maybe they saw, for example, if you come from a broken home,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they saw the tug and pull from mom and dad as their relationship crumbled, and they were pulled each direction, being forced to have loyalty for one or another, on top of financial issues that were caused by their situation. And then we look at current inflation and pricing. This isn't going to change, right?
Nope.
So you say, okay, are me and my wife, I'm a barber and she is a waitress, are we gonna have enough to make 200,000 to have one or two kids? And what happens if, because we have financial issues and we're kind of young, and let's be real, when you're young you're kind of dumb. So what happens now? Oh, what happens if 5 years from now we have a 5-year-old, we decide to get a divorce, and now we perpetuate the same cycle we lived in.
Right.
So it becomes, it kind of goes back to that. I think what happened is we lost our foundation. We allowed divorce to be so prevalent in our society. We allowed the least of these to become the least and least of these, instead of having programs that allow you to get out of these financial situations.
Right.
So when we really zoom out, I think the reason why, and Darlene and I were talking about this at church a little bit, like, I think the reason why marriage statistics have also dropped is because now, if you're trying to get married in your late 20s, women aren't pure anymore, and guys aren't either.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
This is
Guys want to meet a woman that is a stand-up woman, but they're not out there, and girls want to meet a knight in shining armor, and they're not out there either. So you're already coming into the relationship jaded, and then you want to have kids in this economy. You're like, no, hold on. I saw what my parents did. I saw what my grandparents did. I saw what my best friend's parents did. I saw, because divorce, Danny started the podcast towards the beginning, 51% divorce rate, right?
Right. 51.
And the second marriage goes to like 60-something%.
67.
Third, 70-something%, right? So it's like, it's that. And they don't want to perpetuate that. Like, look, I would much rather take 4 vacations this year. I would much rather eat at the fanciest restaurants and live an experience. And I totally get what you're saying, because you don't know this because we don't know each other, but I have a daughter. I love my daughter like crazy. She's the apple of my eye. I'm obsessed with my daughter. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think 5 times before having a couple. And I'm okay. Like, I'm not a waiter, right?
Yeah.
So imagine if I was.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not talking about a waiter at a fancy restaurant, because those
They do make money.
But anyways, I digress. But that's the point, right? And I know you guys are kind of seeing it, but I'm just trying to show. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Because I see y'all agreeing along, which is great, but those are the reasons. I don't know if do I sound.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of reasons.
Yeah, no, you can throw a rock in a pond and get plenty of reasons why you shouldn't do it.
But it's true, because we are believers, right? We do believe in the family unit. We do believe in,
And I think that's probably the point. Is there's a lack of belief that is the right way to go, to have more kids, because that's the right way to go. I guess the world is, generally speaking, they say we should not have kids because we're overpopulated, and the issues with having overpopulation, whether it be environmental, economical, whatever. Mm-hmm. So they would say that the answer is to not have more kids. And then you have people like Elon who would say, no, we need to have more kids, because with more children, these people are going to end up growing. We're missing the next Einstein, or missing the next, put the next person who can do wonderful things.
That's true.
Because we're not having that. The answers to our problems are going to be found in the future generations. And if we're not having future generations, then the problems aren't going to be solved.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And we could probably, talk on the subject till the sun comes up. It's
yeah,
one of those things that, we are, we are where we are today. And,
Mm-hmm.
this is just kind of what we believe now. Now, if you would have asked me this even 5 years ago, I'd probably have a completely different answer for you. And
yeah.
Really bad.
a completely different answer.
She's like, I hate kids. I don't even like.
It's not true. I like my own. I like my own children.
I'm joking.
Can I ask one final question? Like,
Yes.
And this will be the last time I talk, but tell me why this happens. And this is a question mentioned in style of comment, but why are the same people who carry the picketing signs outside an abortion clinic saying, don't have that baby? Why are they the same people that once that baby is born are like, well, you chose to have a baby. We're not going to help you. Because how many churches have big programs to help single mothers? How many churches have funding programs to help them find employment, help them eat, but then they're sitting there and saying, hey, you have to have that kid and don't you dare travel outside. They push legislation. Don't travel outside of lines because we're going to now take you to court because you murdered that kid in another state, right? So while I agree with you guys, I'm opposed to abortion. I want to make that clear, okay?
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's the problem why people look sometimes at church with the distorted lenses. They're like, okay, you want me to have the child, now I have the child. I said, well, you're a child of your problem.
Yeah.
So what can we do as Christians to show people that we mean that we want them to have kids? I don't know.
Yeah.
We have to be better at being the church.
Yeah.
And meaning the church, meaning like back in the day, church was everybody, the church. If so-and-so Sally didn't come to church today, hey, you know what? Let's call her and check on her to see, what. Today, you just get lost in most churches, right? Because they're so big.
Mm-hmm.
And no, you're right. They don't have. And that was one of my biggest arguments with, and I am against abortion. But if you would have asked me this 5 years ago, completely different answer. But my biggest argument too is why are there not more if you're going to pass this legislature and, have these women have these kids in optimal situations, then there should be programs nationwide to be able to help these women. But the church itself should go back to being the church that actually help people. Not just go to church on Sundays, check, I went to church.
Acts chapter 3 church. The church back then, they lacked nothing because they shared
everything.
Right. And it goes back to what you were saying about it's hard to build a life when you're by yourself, just a family by yourself, where we should all be, joining each other and helping each other. And we've gone away from that. Particularly in my point of view, and I agree with Darlene in that we're not doing it enough. But I would say the majority of people who are adopting are Christians. So, but
for sure.
But
that's for sure.
But it's not enough. He said because we need to do more, and we should be doing more. And it goes back to there's the cost of it is ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Do you know how hard it is to adopt somebody, bro?
Oh,
it is so hard.
It's a minimum of $67,000 in legal fees, 3 years of wait, all kind of judicial
red tape by design, right?
They make it almost impossible. But I tell you what, and this is like just yesterday, a lady abused a dog, threw it in the dumpster. It was on New York Post. Did you see it? She dumped 2 dog puppies into a dumpster. 30 minutes later, both of them arrested and prosecuted, bro, like this. But you go through put the kid through the CPS system, give him right back to the parents. They're gonna beat them, bruises everywhere. Put them right back in the system.
Reunification is their biggest
she saw it. She was first. I mean, she's a nurse, so she saw it
Yeah.
all the time.
I mean,
All the
yes,
time.
because I've been a pediatric nurse for 24 years, and so we saw it a lot. And I know you guys as first responders see it a lot. And yes, it's so angering. And we can. That's a
It's a
whole
different
other topic.
Yeah.
But I myself was a foster parent for a while. I had to foster my nephew, but it's like, granted, I had my own home. Yes, I was a single parent. I had my own home, but I had a career, as a pediatric nurse. I made decent amount of money, checked all the boxes. They going even just to foster a kid, they make you feel like you're the criminal.
Right.
Like you have people. I had to have background checks on every person that came into my home, myself,
Yeah.
like all the safety things. I had CPS worker, social worker, CASA worker, foster, I don't forgot the titles, but everybody come into your home at any given time just to check on you, I was like, where were you, all of you, checking on the kid before when they were with the mom?
Right.
Like, it's so angry, and I'm sorry. I was just like, it's just one of those subjects that I'm like,
It really gets you. It really gets you. But I mean,
Yeah.
we're not getting off subject. We're talking, and
and
this
we
is
have to
great
close,
dialogue.
but
This is
yeah.
really great dialogue. But like, because you guys are an example, you guys have dual careers. You guys are, I would say, financially successful. You got two beautiful daughters. You've been married for going on over 20 years, and what is a secret? What's the secret sauce? Like, I know nothing is like daisies and roses, but if somebody's out there about to give up on their marriage or completely stressed out or just completely hopeless and has nothing, like kind of like they just don't know what to do, what would you tell them that are watching right now?
You know what? You know, I'm gonna go biblical.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to the two of the greatest commandments. Is to love your God with all your heart, mind, body, and strength. And then the other one is to love your neighbor as yourself. And in those two aspects, you can apply that to pretty much anything. This is my neighbor here, literally. Our so if you're having trouble and you're in marriage, you first of all you need to make sure that it doesn't get to that point where it's there. But if you're already at that point, man, you can't give up, and you will have to sit there and continue to work, continue to move, and you have to start treating your spouse as if she's your neighbor, as yourself. You need to start treating her as yourself. So that's what I would tell you. And then you if you don't have the foundation already set with God, and that's where you need to start. You need to start there with God, and you need to start pleading with Him, and ask Him. I mean, if you need to wrestle with Him, go and wrestle with Him. If you need to sit there and have an argument with Him, have an argument with Him. Go to town, and see what He does, see how He responds, and go from there. But don't give up. That'd be the last thing you should do. You should not give up. And I'll say this too. I'm so passionate. There's probably two things that hurt me to the core. One is molestation, and the other one's divorce. And the reason why I say divorce is because there's what's happening is there's something that is being torn between, and especially if you have kids, the tearing between what God had intentionally had you together. You two are one when you get married, and to have that tear is heartbreaking, and it causes, there's so much trauma, so much devastation that occurs through it, and it breaks my heart. And I understand sometimes it is what it is, right? But man, I would tell you, man, don't give up. It's like you should be fighting for your marriage as if you're drowning in water. You need to keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting. If you're going under, keep fighting, keep fighting. Go for it. Because what's the alternative?
Thank you, man. What about you?
Yeah. I think what Desmond said is pretty much spot on. The only thing that I would say that, or to add to what he was saying, is I think going back, and you touched a little bit on it, Darlene, but it's like you need to really line yourself up with God and really get to know him, get to know who you are, and
Yeah.
and who he says you are. Like that's key, right? Because we
Right.
can sit here and look
Yeah.
at where the world is right now, right? Where people are identifying or self-identifying or whatever, right? But what is God saying? Who does God say you are? What is he telling you today? Are you sitting still? Are you listening to him? Or are you listening to your other thoughts, right? Because it's like your thoughts will determine basically your life, the quality of your life, right? So if you were thinking good quality thoughts, you're going to build up and have a good quality life. If you are thinking stuff of the opposite spectrum and all you're focusing on is the negative, that ultimately is the reality of your life, something that's not quite so positive. So I think, the renewing of your mind, are you having that? If you are at that breaking point in your marriage, do you have the renewing of your mind? What does scripture say? What is God saying about you and your marriage? So I would say that that's it. Once you have that unity there and he's really truly guiding you and your thoughts and your actions, he will never fail you.
That's great.
And we've had our struggles. There's been times where she's given me her ring
Yes.
back, and I'm being vulnerable here. Yeah.
Did you pawn it? Just
She's like, nope, it's still
Yeah.
Still got it.
No, but it goes back to if you're drowning, I mean, what you gotta fight. You can't let go, and it's work. It is work. It's so much work, and it's an opportunity to show how much you love your spouse. If you really do love her, this is your opportunity to be vulnerable and to let her. When she told me, and I would say this is something that God has given me with this is she, the thing that she lacked from her life experience is what was provided by me. So the so for me with her is she understood that I was never going to leave her and I wasn't going to forsake her, and that's God driven. Because when she gave me the ring and she's like, "Here, take it," I'm like, "No." And sometimes when we're fighting, I will sit there and I will go up. I will intentionally go up to her, and I'm going to do it to this here. I will intentionally go up to her and I will look at her in the eyes and I will say, "I'm not going anywhere."
Yes.
That's kind of creepy, bro.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
this is not as pretty. This is not as beautiful. So
That's powerful, though, man.
Yeah. And I know we have to
Final
close.
thought.
And I
Yeah,
guess I
final
would
thought.
say, just add to that what you said. It's like you're at a breaking point in your marriage, whether you are a believer or not, run to God. If you're not a believer, especially, run to God and see how it changes. Right? If you tried everything else, run to God.
Right.
See if that makes a difference. I guarantee you it will. And if you're a believer, run to God.
Right.
He is the only one that can make miracles work and make changes in people that you yourself cannot. You can't
Right.
change a person. Only God can do that.
That's right.
So that's all I would add. And I know we have to close.
We have to
I don't know
close,
what you
guys. I
have
want to thank you
end
guys for
with.
sticking around. Okay, so the Flores, they're public servants and they have ministry. They're part of a ministry. They lead in baptism. He also has a YouTube channel. We want to plug him in. She's also a life coach on social media. We're going to plug her in down below. You want to know more about them, get connected. And then we'll also be sharing our previous guests. They're all influential people. And the final thing is, I just want to thank you guys for sticking around. Remember, enjoy your marriage, eat plenty of tacos, and have a lot of sex whenever it's allowed. I said it. Yes, God gave you a license for it.
you gotta
So
try
do it.
365 days. You gotta try.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
You know what we talked about?
That's a li-
Well, you
That's
gotta
another
try.
conversation.
6-second kiss.
Oh, God,
Oh.
no.
Yes. Try the
What's your
sick.
Oh, yeah. You can reach me at Maintaining Fire That's the podcast. It's called Maintaining Fire.
Awesome.
And where are you? Like what social media platform?
Oh, yes. So Maintaining Fire. You can find me on YouTube, obviously, TikTok, all the platforms, pretty much. I try to extend myself as far as I can.
How about you, Delma? What about you?
Actually, I'm just Delma Monica.
Okay. Check her out. Awesome. Okay, guys, thank you so much for sticking around. We love you guys. Thank you for hanging out to the very end. This is Grounded HTX. We'll see you on the next one, right?
Yes.